Yo, what's up? Welcome back to Reviews with Jake, where I just got done watching Artemis Fowl. Artemis Fowl is the story about a kid genius who's part of a long line of masterminds who have had plenty of run-ins with fairies, dwarves, other fantasy creatures throughout history. His father tried his whole life to shield him from this reality, but then he gets kidnapped and the kid is kind of forced to, well, learn on the job. It's based upon a book series that was really big, probably like 10 plus years ago, like back when I was in high school maybe, and it was supposed to have a movie that was supposed to come out much sooner than 2020, but then it went through production hell and had delays upon delays upon delays. And here we are in 2020, finally getting the Artemis Fowl movie, and we hear that name and we're like choreographed from Guardians of the Galaxy.
Who?
Now, I've never picked up any of the books, full disclosure, but I honestly prefer it that way whenever I'm going into a movie that's an adaptation, because I don't like to have prior knowledge going in. I don't like having anything to compare it to. I like to go in and see if this movie stands at its own feet by itself, in its own merit, without having supplementary knowledge required before pushing play. Continuing the note of full transparency, while this movie does delve into topics I generally enjoy with fantasy creatures and whatnot, I wasn't really looking forward to this movie because it just didn't look very good. Pair that with the fact that it did go through production hell and delays, which is not ideal when delivering a successful, coherent film. And then the fact that Disney decided to just dump it off onto their streaming service. I mean, I wasn't really confident in it. I was originally going to review King of Staten Island this week and then Artemis Fowl next week, but Artemis Fowl is an hour shorter than King of Staten Island, and I'm on a tight schedule today, so I decided to flip the two. A decision much to my dismay now, but we'll get to that. Speaking of regretful decisions, my god, it is hot in here. Why am I wearing a jacket in June? The pros start with some fantastic, beautiful landscapes and locations. This movie largely takes place in Ireland, which is just a beautiful country. There's a reason it is on my bucket list. There are so many portions of that country that are just a frickin' cheat code. I mean, you could film it with a potato and it would look good. But hey, it's a good spot, so gotta give it to them. It looked good. Another thing this movie did great was set design, specifically that of Fowl Manor, which is a building in which most of the movie takes place, which is set, well, in Ireland. This place is super intricately designed from top to bottom, every square inch of it that is seen on camera. It is exactly what you'd expect a lavish, grand collector's house to look like. It almost had like a House on the Rock vibe to it. If you've ever been to that beautiful place in Wisconsin, I don't really know how else to describe it. It's just meticulously, beautifully arranged chaos. It was great. The other thing I gotta say about this movie that it was very imaginative. I mean, everything from the creature designs, the otherworldly locations that they go to, the technology that they use, the weaponry, all of it was very cool by design. One thing that I always try to bear in mind when watching movie adaptations from books is that everything you are seeing originated in the form of words on a page, and someone had to interpret that, read these words on the page, and somehow bring this to life. I can't imagine that that's an easy feat to accomplish. I mean, most book-to-film adaptations are not great, don't get me wrong, but ones like this that require just you to take these far-out concepts and these huge, elaborate, massive ideas and somehow, some way paint them in the form of not only a picture, but this thing that is alive on screen. I mean, props. Probably my favorite example of this in this film in particular is a technology called time freeze, in which a whole area, I mean a pretty large amount of space, is just covered in this like big snow globe basically, and everything in it just freezes in time like the Quicksilver scenes in the X-Men movies. This is cool in itself, but when this technology does not work, without getting into spoilers, it has some really cool effects that I can honestly say I've never seen that before, and it was a really cool visual. Again, no idea how it was handled or described in the books, but I just simply cannot wrap my mind around a combination of words that I would read and somehow come up with that. That is the power of imagination, my friends. However, this imagination had a limit, a cap, because the CGI capabilities didn't really seem like it kept up to what it needed at certain points. There was a lot of creature designs and such that just don't really look as good as CGI should look nowadays with today's CGI technology in film. I mean, maybe several years ago when this movie was supposed to come out, maybe it was impressive then and they just haven't really updated it. I mean, but it just didn't seem like it aged well, and I can't imagine it's going to look any better a couple years from now. Like, there's one moment in the film where a centaur character runs/gallops across the screen, and I straight up just laughed. Like, it just looked so ridiculous, it was hysterical. The editing in this movie was also pretty poor, specifically that in action sequences. It was super choppy, just way too overproduced, and when the bar of action movies has been rather set pretty high nowadays with franchises like John Wick, I mean, that overproduced action sequence just doesn't really have the same appeal anymore. They also try to implement a lot of like Matthew Vaughn Kingsman like flips with the camera along with the action and everything, and it's been done better elsewhere. But while all that is annoying, my biggest gripe is by far the writing and story of this film. Again, I have never read the books that this movie is based upon, but you just know when you're watching a movie like this, when you're watching an adaptation that is doing an absolute disservice to the story and the lore of the book. Movies like Valerian or The Dark Tower, neither of which I read those books, but I watched those movies, and as I'm watching those movies and I'm exploring new worlds and meeting new creatures and everything, you feel like it should be a lot cooler than it is, but you're watching and you're just like, eh. And that's how I felt while watching this movie. I honestly felt like it should have been way longer than 90 minutes. There were way too many worlds to explore, creatures to meet, technology to see, and you just feel like you just kind of got a Spark Notes version of it. This is reinforced by the insane amount of exposition dumps in this movie, both from characters on screen as well as the narrator. The effective use of a narrator is a tough thing to get right, in my opinion. Like, for example, in this movie, there's a portion where you're seeing the son and the father talking to each other, and they're laughing. It looks really cheesy, but you're not hearing any of their conversation. You're hearing a narrator saying that they basically love and enjoy each other's company. You're not hearing the conversation, you're just hearing the guy basically tell you that they like each other. Why have the narrator give us that information? Why not shut him up, turn him down, turn up the conversation that you're already seeing on camera? They're clearly talking to each other and laughing and such. I want to hear what they're saying. I want to learn that they like each other and love each other firsthand, not hear some guy tell me that that's the way that they feel. It often just feels lazy and rather condescending, like the audience is not going to be smart enough to listen to a conversation between these two and walk away from it knowing that they love each other. I think we'll pick it up. It's this constant hand-holding that this movie feels like it needs to do to get its point across throughout this whole runtime. Like in terms of exposition dumps from on-screen characters as they're talking to each other, they mention a character that we haven't met before or never mentioned. It's mentioned for the first time, and then the one guy turns to the other guy and says, yeah, that guy did this, and then he did this, and this is how it affected us today, and this is how we feel about it. Like, you couldn't hide that information in some natural conversation, you just gotta huck it right in our faces? Or like when we first learned the name of the item that the father is being held for ransom for, and then Artemis is reading some documents and then the name of that item is mentioned, and then the dude in the room with him just blurts out, that's the item we need to retrieve in order to save your father. Yeah, we know, and so does he. You made that evident in a previous exposition dump earlier in the film. I get it, it's a kid's movie, and kids are not the brightest, but it's stuff like that that just drives me crazy while watching a movie. Pairing that with some pretty rough acting performances virtually from top to bottom, including some of the top-billed cast, this movie is pretty forgettable. Unfortunately, I understand why Disney just pooped it out onto Disney+. I'm going to give Artemis Fowl a D. Adaptations, man. They're scary. I genuinely believe that the source material in the books that this is based upon is much better than this made it out to be. And I do feel really bad for the writers as well as the fans of the source material whenever stuff like this manifests itself. Like, for instance, I'm a huge Resident Evil fan, and thanks to those abominations of movies that are out there, I always have to put an asterisk next to that every time I say that out loud to clarify that I love the games but condemn the movies. And that's just exhausting. But that's just me. What do you guys think? Let me know if you agree or disagree in the comments below. And make sure you subscribe to this channel to stay up to date on new reviews coming real soon. Stay safe and thanks for checking in.